So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, guys, based on the time zones you all are coming from. So guys, before we start with the session, can you all please give me a quick confirmation if you all can see my screen and hear me loud and clear as well? So can you use the questions tab to give me a quick information, guys, if you all can see my screen and hear me loud and clear as well? Perfect. Thank you for the confirmation, Kunal, Ashutosh, Kadri, Vikash, Durga. Perfect. Thank you for the confirmation, everyone. So now let me start by introducing myself. So my name is Neeraj Kheria, and I have been working in this IT industry for almost 10 years now. So I started my career working as a UI designer, designing the front end and back end of applications, which were mostly focused on enterprise solutions for insurance, retail, banking, pharmaceutical, location-based services, and satellite imagery for the markets of India, US, Canada, Singapore, Australia, and other Southeast Asian markets so far. And since then, I have been leading global teams for design, development, and marketing of these solutions for the global market, right? And in terms of the training front, I have been actively training the workforce of companies, including Mercedes, EY, Capgemini, Accenture, Google, Grab. So I've been training the workforce of these companies in making sure they are updated in the current trends and technologies, so that they can deliver a more optimum solution to the clientele, thus keeping them a step ahead out of their competition, right? And that's exactly what I have been helping the companies in achieving that. All right. So now let's get started on our session today. Now, our main goal for this session now is to make this entire session as interactive as possible, guys. So there's a simple and single rule for this entire session. In case you have any questions coming in, please feel free to drop in your questions using the questions tab here, so that I can make sure that once I have the visibility to all of your questions, I can make sure that all your queries are answered one by one in giving you a better clarity. All right. And since we have a good number of participants joining, guys, now it may happen that sometimes some of your queries may be left unanswered, or your queries may get buried down in the pile of questions that we will be getting, right? So don't feel disheartened. Just kindly make sure that you pose the same question again and again, so that once I have a clarity, once I have a visibility on those questions, I can try to answer these one by one. All right. So now let's get started. Today we have gathered here on our discussion on Python, right? So the main agenda for today's session would be we would be having a complete introduction on Python, what exactly Python is, who exactly uses Python, and what are different features of Python, what are different operators in Python, data types, flow control, and functions in Python, and how we can handle file in Python itself, right? And then as an add-on, as a part of hands-on, we'll be looking at some of the few examples of how we can visualize data, how we can handle data as a part of Python, right? Now let's get started. So first of all, we'll be starting with a clarity on what Python is, and then we'll see the hands-on on what we have learned as a part of our entire session today. All right. So now let's go ahead and get started. So now let's start by our introduction to Python. So Python, as we know, is the object-oriented language, which is a high programming language here, right? So Python, now the main purpose of the main structure of Python it is high-level language, and it is also process-oriented. It is also process-oriented itself, right? And it is easy to learn. It is easier to learn. It is object-oriented. Now it works on the same principle as of Java. It works on the same principle in Java as we have seen in object-oriented programming in Java itself. All right, and that exactly Python is all about. Now, who exactly uses Python? So Python is the main driving force for different companies out there. Python is a main driving force for different companies. Now, if we talk about the most popular applications out there, like we have YouTube. We have YouTube, right? So YouTube is also written on Python itself, right? So YouTube is also written on Python, and that's why we know that YouTube is the most efficient streaming services out there. Why? Because again, it is mainly built on top of Python using other concepts for big data, so that the entire streaming is done smoothly and without any kind of issues, right? Google is also using Python in making sure its entire web search systems are in place, are working properly and as quickly as possible, right? Dropbox, as we must be aware of, Dropbox also uses multiple service code. Both now, Dropbox mainly uses its service code in its server and desktop client software as well, which are again written in Python, right? We have Raspberry Pi is also also a single board computer application, right? Which is again running on Python language as its main driving force, right? Next, we have BitTorrent. BitTorrent is also, as we know, is a peer-to-peer file sharing system, again built on Python. Then we have NASA. So NASA uses the Python for its scientific programming task, right? Like we have now, including NASA, Los Alamos, Fermilab, JPL. So these all are using Python as a part of its driving force, right? Then NSA, as we know, the National Security Agency, also uses Python for cryptography and intelligence analysis. So simply uses Python it simply uses Python for making sure all the documents that they use are highly encrypted, because that contains the documents for national security. So that's why they have to be highly encrypted as well, using like we get highly secure cryptography method, and for its analysis on different streams of data coming in, right? Be it for the live video streams or any other data stream that they are capturing, right? Netflix, that we all love to use on a daily basis. So Netflix also uses Python and Yelp, right? So Netflix uses Python as a main driving force for creating its entire infrastructure and making sure that the streaming is done smoothly for its users, just like YouTube. All right. Now, let's understand different features of Python. So Python is easier to learn. So as we have discussed, even when we are good with Java, even though when don't have that much of skill set with Java, we can always start with Python, because learning Python is much easier as compared to Java. Okay, so Java requires a deeper understanding of programming, and it has a more complex structure and syntaxes as compared to Python here, right? That's why it is much easier to get started with. Next is it is also a part of open source. That means now Python is simply an example for flaws. So when we say flaws, we simply mean free and open source software, right? So that it can be freely distributed and it can be modified. We can have multiple plugins, multiple libraries available as a part of Python development, right? And what we have discussed, it is a part of high level language. That means we don't need to bother the low level details like memory allocation and etc., because these things are automatically taken care by Python script, right? And again, it is portable. That means it is supported by multiple platforms, including Linux, Windows, Macintosh. We have again for PlayStation, for Amiga, for Windows C. So this is supported by multiple platforms, making it much more scalable as a part of Python, right? And it supports multiple programming paradigms. So again, that's why it is easier to be integrated with multiple applications, right? And again, Python can be extended to invoke C and C++ libraries, right? It can be integrated with Java and .NET components, right? And that's why it is also used for web development, for web scraping, for big data, and for all kind of data analysis, right? Now, first of all, let's understand how we can get started by how we can get started by installing Python into our system, so that we can start coding on top of it, right? Let's understand that. So first of all, in order to install Python, we can simply go to this domain called python.org, and where in download section we can choose the current version for available that we can see here. Now we have Python. We can download Python for Windows, for Mac, for different systems as per our requirement. right? So here we can choose the current version, Python 3.6. Let me show you how we can browse this into, how we can navigate through this. Now, there are multiple IDs available for Python, right? There are multiple IDs available for Python. So we can get started by using any particular ID, right? So there are multiple IDs. Let me show you how many IDs are available for Python. So if we search for Python IDE, we can find multiple IDs available. Here we have PyCharm, we have IDLE, we have Eclipse, Atom, Thorny, IntelliJ, Cloud9. We have multiple IDs available on which we can get started on developing on top of Python, right? We can use any of these IDs, right? So currently, now if we want to use Python ideally, we can get started. We can simply search for download Python ideally, and then this will simply install it, right? Or we can use another ID called PyCharm. So PyCharm is also one of the most popular ID through which we can get started on coding using Python, right? So we can choose PyCharm IDE. So let me share this link with everyone so that we can all use this link and start downloading it. Let me share this link. Just a moment, guys. So now let me copy this link and share this link with everyone. Here you go. So you can all use this link, guys, to get started on downloading PyCharm. Now, PyCharm is available on two parts, right? So we have two versions of PyCharm that we can download and get started, right? So here we can click on download, and there are two versions available for PyCharm. We have the professional version, and then we have community version. So we can use professional if we are working on multiple projects. For example, we are working on JS, on SQL support, on HTML, then we can use professional, which supports multiple languages here, right? Or if you want to start developing on only on core Python, then we can use community version, right? Yes, Abhijit, IntelliJ is also good for Python development. It all depends upon our requirement, right? It all depends upon a requirement and which platform we are comfortable with, right? So for some users, PyCharm may seem a bit complex and IntelliJ may seem to be easier, whereas for some users, IntelliJ may seem to be complex and PyCharm may seem to be easier, right? So it all comes down to our own requirement. All right. So now once we are done, once we are on this page, we can click on community for starting on core community or core Python projects. So once we download this, then we can open this PyCharm, right? So we have to download and then we can start using PyCharm as a part of our Python ID, right? So once we install PyCharm, first of all, we have to click on files. We can start a new project, right? So now here we can give this project any name. Suppose we want to give this project a name here. So let's give this a name, click on create. Now we can choose, we want to start with a new window. We can choose a new window for us. And let's wait for a couple of seconds for this to start being downloaded. Just a moment, guys. Okay, I have a query coming in. So Kadri, so what is PIP? So Kadri, PIP is simply we can say as a part of package manager available for Python. PIP is simply a part of package manager that we will be discussing as we continue further. All right. So PIP is simply the Python, we can say package manager. All right. All right, guys. So now let's get started. So now once we have the project created, now we can start by exploring our project. So here we have the project created here. And now we can, once we have the project created, what we can do, we can simply right click on the project. And now we can choose to create any new file out of it, right? We can simply right click on the project here. We can choose new. And now if you want to get started, we can create a new file for Python. Suppose we call this as okay, I have a query coming in. Just a moment. Just right click on the project here, click on Python file. Here we can define the Python any name here. Suppose we want to call this as demo, right? Demo.py. And if we have chosen Python file, now this will create a demo.py Python file on top of which we can get started. All right. Okay, Harsha, so why do we need ID? So Harsha, we need an ID because again, we need an environment in which we want to start developing, right? Just like we need a JVM when we are coding for Java, we need a JVM, correct? And that exactly we need ID for starting the development as well, right? And there are multiple IDs that we can choose from. We have IntelliJ, we have PyCharm, we have Eclipse, Atom. It all comes down to our requirement and with which platform we are comfortable with. All right. So is it clear, Harsha? Please give me a quick information. And Kadri, this is a Mac system. So we are currently using the Mac system. All right. And then we have downloaded and installed PyCharm for our development. All right. So now let's get right back, guys. So once we have installed PyCharm, then we can resume in understanding the different operators available in Python, right? Now, if we have to understand different operators in Python, then we have these different operators available as a part of Python language, right? Now, most of the operators are common that we see for every other language, right? Like we have arithmetic operator, assignment operators, comparison, logical, bitwise, identity, and then we have spatial operators, right? So if we have to start with arithmetic operators, then arithmetic operators, as we know, is used for calculations, right? So here we have addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division as a part of different arithmetic operators on top of Python, right? So now to get started working on Python, here we can use multiple operators on Python through which we can perform any kind of calculation when we are trying to develop any kind of structure as a part of Python language, right? Now, as a simple example, suppose let's say we want to get started in addition of any two numbers, right? Then what we can do, we can simply create one Python file, right? And for example, let's say if we go back to our IDE, let's go back to our IDE here. We can open up PyCharm again. Now in this, we can simply suppose, let's say we have two numbers to define. Suppose we define x is equal to suppose 54, then we can define y is equal to 77. Now, as you can see here, there is no semicolon or any kind of syntax required for Python because again, these things are not required when we are working on Python language, right? And suppose if we want to print the sum out of it, right? So here we can simply use this operator called addition, x plus y, right? So what this will do, this will simply print the statement. That means it will print the value. So whatever value we have stored in x and y, this will print the value as a part of Python code, right? And for running the Python codes in PyCharm, what we have to do is we simply have to right click anywhere on the code, and then we have something called as run, right? So we can click anywhere on the code itself, and then we have run, right? So once we click on run, then we can see the output which has been given to us, right? So now we can see the output which has been printed, that is x plus y, that is 54 plus 77 is giving us 131, right? So these are different operators that we can use. So again, we can choose any operator, right? So we can go for multiplication, we can go for addition, exactly as per our requirement. And again, if you have to run this statement, we have to right click on it, click on run, and then we'll be seeing the output for it. And then we'll be seeing the output for it. All right. So that's how we can get started on coding on top of Python. So here we have multiple operators that we can choose from. All right. So the same way we have operators for finding the modulus, for finding the division for any numbers, exactly as per our requirement. All right. Next is we have assignment operators. So assignment operators are basically used for cross-checking, or suppose let's say we want to cross-check something, right? We want to print something, then we can do that easily using assignment operators. Using assignment operators, we can do that, right? For example, let's say we want, now as a simple example for assignment operators, let's go ahead and check, right? Now what we can do is for assignment operators, we can come back to our ID. Now here we have two numbers. Suppose here we have x is equal to 54, and instead of y, we define suppose something as x is equal to and plus. That means x should be x plus 3 itself, right? So x should be, suppose x, if x is 54, it should be 21. Then what it means, that means x here is equal to x plus whatever value we have defined here, right? This is the meaning of these assignment operators, correct? So if we go ahead and now if we try to print x, here, then we can see what will be returned. Again, we can right click on the statement, we can click on run. Then we can see the output being visible to us, right? So if we run the entire statement here, as you can see here, now we're getting the addition of 54 plus 21, that is 75, right? So these are different assignment operators that we can get started with, right? And these are mostly helpful in when we are building any functions. And here we do not need to specify the same thing again and again, right? Because this is simple now. Plus and equal to is simply helping us in writing these additional lines of code. For example, x plus 21, right? So instead of mentioning this long statement here, we can use this shorthand version as a part of assignment operators, in Python, right? Then we have comparison operators. So comparison are basically useful when we are making some comparison between two values. When we are comparing two values, then we can use comparison operators, right? For example, let's say when we are comparing, if one number is greater than or the other number, right? If one number is greater than, less than, equal to, not equal to, right? Then we can use different assignment or we can say comparison operators, right? So basically, if you want to start again on this comparison operator, again, we can define two numbers here. For example, x is 54, and here we can add y is equal to again 21, right? Now here we can check if x is greater than or equal to y, it should simply return, okay, if x is greater than y, it should return simply value as true or false, right? So here again, we can right click on run. So as you can see here, if now here we have checked if x is greater than y, it has written the value as true, right? If this would have been the other way, suppose if you would have checked if y is greater than x, then again run demo. Now this is false because y value is 21, which is not greater than or equal to x value here, right? So that's why we can use this as a part of comparison operators. All right. So till now, are we all clear on arithmetic, comparison, and the logical operators? Please give me a quick information, guys. Give me a quick information, everyone. Harsha, Ashutosh, Praveen. Okay, Kadri, so can you please re-explain? Okay, Kadri, sure, Kadri, on which part? Thank you for confirmation, Kunal. Rohit, Madan. Thank you for appreciation, Shivam, Parth, Praveen. Perfect. Thank you for confirming, Prakriti. Okay, sure, Kadri, no problem. Let's go right back into our console. For example, let's say we are trying to use a simple logical operator, right? So first of all, in Python, we have to define a value as well, correct? Suppose we have x, now here we have stored, now here we have declared a variable called x, and then we have stored a value as 54, right? Suppose let's take the value as 99, right? Then we have declared another variable as y, and then we have stored a value as 101, right? Now we can perform, now here we have print statement. Now either we can go ahead and perform the operation here. Suppose z should be equal to x plus y, x plus y. So here we can either print directly z, right? So it will simply display the output as well as 200, right? Or if we want, we can go ahead and instead of declaring another z here, what we can do, we can directly perform the operation in print statement as well. We can do that. So again, if we click on run, again we are seeing the same output, right? Again, if you want to check if one is greater than or equal to y, again this can be checked and the value will be returned. So if x is less than or equal to y, then this will be true, else this would have been false, right? Suppose if you want to check if x is greater than or equal to y, again if you run the demo, now we're having false. All right. So is this part clear, everyone? Please give me a quick information now. Thank you for appreciating Edukun. So I think this was your query from Yoran Kader. Perfect. Thank you for confirming, Kunal. Wonderful. Thank you for the confirmation, everyone. All right. Now there's one. Okay, let's break away for a while and let me show you a small meetup application that we have. Now we do have an entire meetup available, guys. So where we can join this meetup to stay updated on all the upcoming webinars that we conduct on a monthly basis, right? So let me share this link with everyone. So there are more than 100 plus webinars that we conduct every month on different topics on cloud computing, on Python, on AWS, on Azure, on DevOps. So there are multiple. So there are multiple webinars on different topics that we conduct on every month basis. And just to make sure that you all are aware of the topics on which we are conducting the webinars, right? You all are aware on, and you want to be notified on any upcoming webinars, so that if that is something that is of interest to you, you can go ahead and join that webinar free of cost, right? So there are no charges for it. And again, if you want to get started, we can join these webinars free of cost for every month. All right, and and again, we conduct more than 100 plus webinars in every month on different topics that we can join and get a good hands-on and good knowledge on these topics every month, right? So I've shared the link, guys, and again, it's a really good platform to stay connected. So where we can connect with other members, and then we can see what exactly is happening and what changes are being done on different technologies as we speak. right? And to stay updated. And the best part is, again, it will be free of cost. And again, if we become a part of this, again, we'll be eligible for getting multiple discounts on the courses as well. All right. So you can all join this link here, guys, to stay updated on all the upcoming webinars for different topics. So as you can see here, we have for Python basics, for talent, for cybersecurity, for linear regression, right? And these are all the events that has already been conducted, as you can see here. All right. Okay. Praveen, this is an online session itself. That's why we are able to answer the queries from every of the participants who are joining in and those who have joined and seen this entire webinar. Yes, Praveen. So again, in case you have, okay, we have put everyone on mute just to make sure that we don't have any disturbances in between. And again, if in case you do have any genuine queries, then we can take a query towards the end of the session. So that at that point of time, I can try to unmute you and take up your queries. Sounds good? Perfect. Thank you for the confirmation. Now let's resume working on Python that we had started. All right. Next is we have logical operators. So logical operators, as we had discussed, is basically used to check conditions, right? So if one condition is being fulfilled with the other, then we can perform logical operations on top of it, right? And as we see here, basically there are main three operators. We have AND operator, OR operator, and then we have NOT operators, right? For example, let's say we want to check some condition, then we can use AND, or NOT operators to check the condition itself, right? For example, let's say if you want to simply check one condition, so let's go ahead and create that. Let's go back to our pie chart. Now, for example, suppose here we have a value as x is equal to 99, right? Now, if we want to use an AND operator, then what we can do, we are simply trying to print a statement checking that if x is, suppose if x is less than 100, if x is less than 100, and if x is equal to 99, for example, if x is equal to 99. So here there can be two conditions, right? So here we are checking for two conditions here. If x is less than 100, or let's suppose 99, or let's do one thing. If x is greater than, suppose 88, or suppose 89. So here we have two conditions. If x is less than 100 and if x is greater than 89, then it should simply print the value as true or false, right? So for running the statement here, we can click on run demo, and this will run the demo for us. So as you can see here, now the condition has been returned as true, right? And suppose if we change one condition, suppose if we change the condition, suppose if we change the condition, if x is less than, for example, suppose 90, right? Now in this condition, only one condition is fulfilled. That is, if x is greater than 989, but x is not less than 90, right? So now let's see what happens if we again run the demo. Now it has returned false. Why? Even though one condition has been fulfilled, the other one has not been fulfilled, right? And that's the logic of AND. So when we are using AND, both the conditions needs to be fulfilled, right? And that exactly has we have checked here. And now we have another operator as OR. Suppose if this would have been OR, then if any of these conditions are fulfilled, this will return true as an output, right? So if we go ahead and again run this, now we can see here, now it has returned true. That means even though x is not less than 90, that is false for this one, right? But again, if this condition is true, then it has returned true as a statement, right? That's the main difference between and OR. So in AND, both the conditions needs to be fulfilled, whereas in OR operator, only one condition needs to be fulfilled here as a part of our logical operators. All right. So are we all clear on logical operators, guys? Please give me a quick information, everyone. Are we all clear on logical operators? and how we can use it. Perfect. Thank you for confirmation, Kunal, Harsha, Kadri, Pankaj, Ashutosh, Pooja, Praveen. Perfect. Thank you for confirming, everyone. All right. So now let's resume. Next, we have bitwise operators. So bitwise, perfect. Thank you for confirming, Gaurav, Rohit, Sumit, Diokun, Fateh. Perfect. So now next is we have bitwise operators. Again, bitwise are basically used to perform operations on each bit of the number, right? Depending upon the requirement, say maybe we can perform XOR, we can perform AND on each bit of the number if we can do that, right? So again, these are basically done for more complex situations, right? When we are comparing multiple binary numbers. So if we are comparing multiple binary numbers, then we can go ahead and perform these, right? Same way we have identity. Same way we have multiple identity operators here, right? So identity, now basically in identity we have two things. We have two operators available. We have is and then we have is not, right? Let me suppose if we want to check if one object is a part of the other object, then we can use binary operators for that, right? So sorry, identity operators for that, right? So if you are looking at checking the condition that if one component is a part of the other, then we can use identity operators for that, right? So now how to check that part? Let's go ahead and see to this. Let's go back to our PyCharm. Now in here, let's create one particular program. Let's create an array. Let's create a simple array here. For example, let's say here we create an array for example, let's say one is for table, and the other array element can be for chairs. That's how we define array. Suppose here we have table and then we have chair, right? Next is again we declare something as y. Again we create an array here with two values, same as suppose table, and the other object here is chair, right? Now next is we have again we can define z index, and again now in z what we can define, if z is, we are defining that z is equal to x, that z is equal to x here. Okay, I have a quick query from Cardrivel. So could you please explain the need of spaces? Is that mandatory? No, Cardrivel, it is not required. But again, just to make sure that we have a clean looking code, we do add spaces, right? So that we don't end up messing it. And again, it becomes clearly visible in case we are reviewing the code, us or either any of the other developers. Then it is part of a good coding practice. All right, perfect. So now let's do one thing. Now here what we have defined, we have defined that z is equal to x, right? So now what we can do, we can simply go ahead and print it, right? So here we can print the statement, suppose if x is z. So now what this will do, this will check if x is equal to z, then this will check and return if x is equal to z, right? Then we can print another statement as, so now here we can check another part as if x is y. That means we can check if x is equal to y, and in third statement we can again check, we can print another statement if x is equal to y, because for checking if one value is equal to y, we can use this double equal to sign, right? So now let's do one thing, let's go ahead and print these statements, run demo. What we can see here, for the first statement, it has been returned that x is z, true, because we have defined if x is equal to z, right? Now, second statement, if x is y, it has returned false, although they contain the identical data, but here we have not defined that x is equal to y, right? That's why it has returned false. And if x is equal to y, that means now here we are checking if the value of x is equal to y, obviously they are equal, and that's why it has been returned true here, right? Suppose if here we would have defined that if z is equal to y, if z is equal to y, again if we run this, as you can see here, now this statement stands false, because here x is not equal to z, because here we define z is equal to y, not x, right? That's why we are seeing false in the first statement, right? But although the value of x and y are equal, that's why it is being written as true here, right? Same way, if we check this as if y is z, now this will return true as an output. As you can see, now again it is true, because that's what we had defined here. All right. So are we clear on this identity operators? Please give me a quick information, everyone. Are we clear on identity operators? Perfect. Thank you for confirming, Harsha, Kadriwal, Kunal, Pujya, Ashutosh, Entity, Gaurav. Perfect. Thank you for confirming, everyone. Now let's move ahead. Now, last we have membership operators. So membership simply checks if if two operands are identical to each other or not, right? That's what we use membership operators for, right? For example, let's suppose if we want to check, now let's go back to the same example as what we had discussed. So now in the same statement, the same command, in the same statement, what we do is we remove the other statements. We keep x is equal to table and chair. And now if we want to print the statement, suppose as, now if we want to check if chair is in x, suppose if chair is in x, right? Then it, now again, if chair value is available in chair, it will return true. So again, we can go ahead, run the demo. What we have, true, right? Suppose if we would have used something else, suppose we would have checked for chairs, then this would have returned false. So as you can see, now it is false here, right? Because shares is not available under X, right? And that is exactly we can use it for checking as a membership operator. All right. And same way again, if we would have required to check not in, again we could have used not in here as not in, then this would have been true. Then this would have been true here. If we again click on run demo, as you can see, chairs is not in X, right? That's why it is returning true here. And in real world application, this can be used to check any condition, right? So suppose, let's say we are trying to check if one value is available in the array or not, then we can use in and not in statement in those cases. We can do that. All right. So are we clear on not in operators, guys? Please give me a quick information. Everyone? Perfect. Thank you for confirmation, everyone. So now let's proceed. All right, so now let's get started on data types, right? So now let's assume on data types. So as you can see here now, just like we have multiple data types available in Java and other languages, here we have in Python, we have again two types of data type. We have immutable and then we have mutable, right? So again, in immutable, we have numbers, strings, and tuples, whereas in mutable, we have lists, dictionaries, and sets as a part of Python. As a part of Python, as a part of data types available in Python language, right? So now let's see what are these, what exactly are these data types here, right? Now, for those who are new to programming, we have two things here: mutable and immutable, right? So mutable are those which can be changed even after they have been declared, right? So we can change lists, we can change dictionaries and sets, whereas immutable are those which cannot be changed after they have been declared, right? So again, for changing these, we have to use multiple functions for it. All right. So now let's see what exactly these data types are. So first of all, we have numbers, right? So numbers we can now numbers are in the same way that we have already defined, correct? So we have been defining numbers here as a part of data type, like we have defined x is equal to 101, right? So what is this? A number itself, right? And just like number, we have strings. So string simply stores value for in terms of any particular alphabet, like alphabets, right? So again, we can store this as a part of string here, right? For example, suppose here we type in as welcome to Python, right? So Python development. So again, we can, now what is this? This is a part of string here, right? So again, if we want to print this, we can simply print X, right? We can simply run this and this will print the statement that we have declared, that we have stored under X, right? Now string, now there are multiple operations that we can perform on string, multiple operations that we can perform on string here. Like we have concatenation, repetition, we have slicing. There are multiple operations that we can define as a part of string, right? As a part of Python development. So now let's see a small example on how we can perform multiple operations as a part of learning Python. Okay, we query from someone, just a moment. Now, as a part of multiple functions here, we also have find, we have replace, split, count, right? So these are multiple functions that we can execute as a part of Python, as a part of Python language here, right? So now for completing this, what we can do, we can now, if we want to go back, let's do one thing. Let's say we have this statement, right? So now we want to replace a part of this string. We want to replace a part of the string here, right? So what we can do, we can simply declare one statement here, right? So here, suppose say we can declare a statement as x. We can simply declare it is as suppose as x, right? Or suppose we wanted to call this as suppose text itself, right? As text, right? So here we can now here what we want is we want to replace the string in x. Then we can use this command called replace, right? Because here we are trying to replace something in x, right? And now we have to declare the word, exact word that we are trying to replace. For example, let's say we are trying to replace Python, right? So let's suppose here we can close it. Here we are saving Python. And now instead of Python, now next is we have to declare the word with which we are trying to replace it with. So Python we are trying to replace it with let's suppose Edureka. So here we can go ahead and declare this. Now if we want to print this, now if we try to print this part, we can simply define suppose text. And now if we run it, can you all see this? So originally we have stored x is a welcome to Python, and now we have replaced this particular text with Python with Edureka. All right. So these are the one of the more like multiple operations that we can perform on top of string. So are we clear on this part, guys? On how we can perform multiple string functions? Please give me a quick information. Everyone? Perfect. Thank you for confirming, guys. Gaurav, Nadem, Kunal, Kadival, Ashutosh, Sandhya, Harsha. Perfect. Thank you for confirming, guys. Same way, we have multiple operations that we can conduct on top of Python, right? So now let's go back and see exactly what those are separately. So same way we have tuples, right? So tuple is, we can say it's a sequence of immutable Python objects. Like we have floating numbers, string, literals. Again, tuples can't be changed like this because again, it is a part of immutable objects that we discussed. So immutable cannot be changed, but mutable objects can be changed later on as well, right? And if we want to declare multiple tuples, then we can do that easily by defining the text, and then we can change we can have float numbers, we can have string, we can have all the alphabet arranged here. All right. Same way we can perform multiple operations on tuple, just like we have done on string. There are multiple operations that we can perform on tuples as well, exactly as per our requirement. All right. And next is here we have repetition, slicing, indexing. We can choose a value exactly as per the requirement, right? Now, indexing is basically used for storing a particular value. For example, let's say here we have, now in X, we have stored a variable. For example, earlier we have stored an array, correct? So earlier we had stored variable as a simple array here, right? And now if we want to store the value for print, and here we want to use X, right? Again, we want to store the value, we want to print only chair, right? So as you know, in array, the object starts from 0, right? So you have 0, then 1, then 2, 3, so on, right? If you want to print chair here, we can simply give the index value as X1, right? And again, if we run this, we'll be getting chair printed because now we have called only the object stored at index 1, and that is chair, right? So this can be defined as a value here. All right. So these are different operations that we can perform on top of Python as a part of, now same way if we have multiple list items, we can have the same operation as concatenation, repetition, slicing, indexing. These all things we can perform as a part of Python functions, right? Suppose if we want to index one value, if we want to append one value, then we can all do that easily using Python, right? Now, next is we have dictionaries here. Those dictionaries are basically useful for more flexible built-in data types in Python, right? For example, like this can be stored and fetched both by the keys, right? Instead of a positional offset. So here we have a key here, and then we have defined the value. Again, we have key. Again, we have the value defined here as a part of dictionaries in Python. As a part of dictionaries in Python here. All right. So next is now here we can have any empty dictionary. Here we can have dictionary with integer keys, with mixed keys. We can add multiple dictionaries if we want, right? And again, if you want to have multiple sequences, then we can also add sequences as a part of dictionary. It all comes down to our own use case and our requirement. We can do that, right? Now, for example, suppose if we want to store a dictionary here, right? So again, we can go back. We can go back to our variable here. Suppose now we want to store this as a part of dictionary, right? So what we can do, we can suppose here now instead of this square bracket, what we can do, we can add a curly braces. We can add curly braces here, right? Let's remove this. Now in curly braces, now we can start at, suppose let's say we want to store the value for brand, right? Suppose let's say brand, or suppose ID, like we have ID. Now we can define ID here, and then we can store the value for ID. Then we can store the value for ID here, right? For example, for ID, we want to store value as suppose 5, right? Next, again, we can add a simple comma. Again, we can define, suppose something we want to store the value as, suppose name, right? Again, we can define the value for name and store the value as, suppose name is suppose ABC, right? Then again, we can add a simple comma. Again, suppose let's say we want to define something as year. Now we can define the year as suppose year is 2019 itself, right? So depending upon our requirement, we can keep on adding multiple dictionary, multiple components of these dictionary, right? And again, if you want to print this, if you want to print this entire dictionary, then what we can do, we can use the same print statement, and now we can define X because we have saved the dictionary as X, right? So if we simply go ahead and print X here, let's run it. What we can see here we have year, ID, and then we have name defined, whatever we have defined as a part of dictionary. All right. And then at last we have, again, we have multiple operations that we can conduct on top of dictionary as well, right? So we can find the position, we can find the keys, the values exactly as per our requirement. And at last we have sets. So sets are basically a set of unordered collections, right? And before we move to sets, so are we all clear on strings, tuples, list, and dictionaries, guys? Please give me a quick information, everyone. So are we all clear till this point? Ashutosh, Kunal. Okay, I have a query from someone. Oh, can you please explain slicing? Okay, sure. Let's go ahead and use slicing here. Let's do that. Now, for slicing, what we can do, now suppose say we have stored data, right? And we want to print a portion of that data, then we can use slicing. For example, same way we have suppose X, right? And in X, we store, suppose, let's say we again store values, like we have, suppose we store something as ABC, we store values as suppose ABC, then we store DEF, then we store GHI, then we store JKL, and then we store MNO, right? So all of these are different values that we are storing as a part of our X variable, right? Now let's do one thing. Now let's say we want to slice things up. Suppose here we have Y, and now we want to slice. We want to slice. Now, for slicing, we have to define two parameters here. For slicing, we have to define two parameters. That means the starting point and the ending point, right? Suppose we want to start by slicing from, suppose GHI, right? Then what we have to do here, we have to define the value here, correct? Suppose if you want to start displaying by GHI, then we have to slice from this point, correct? And we want suppose till JKL, right? Then what we can do, we can define the endpoint. We can define the endpoint at which we want to stop, right? So this will be 0, 1. So 1, we will be starting from 1, and then we'll be ending at 3 itself, right? So here, now here we have to define the starting point and the end point of slicing that needs to be done here, right? And once we are done, we can again use a print statement to print the results, right? So again, we have to print again X, and now we have to use the value for Y, right? Because it will take the value from X, but again, how much value we have to take, that will be defined in Y itself, right? So again, if we go ahead and print this, can you all see this? Now we have a portion only that has been printed, right? So we have DF and GHI. All right. So are we clear on this point, everyone? So I think this was query from you, Bunty, on how we can define slicing. Yes, Aryappa, it will be the same for dictionary as well. We can perform the slicing for dictionary as well. We can do that. Perfect. Thank you for confirmation, everyone. So now let's move ahead. So same way we have seen multiple operations that we can perform on. So here we have union, intersection, differences. So we can conduct these kind of different operations as well when we are going with union. All right. So on set as well, we can provide multiple examples here. That suppose if you want to add any item to any particular sets here, right? Suppose let's say we want to add an item here, then what we can do, for example, let's say we want to add something. So we can come back. Suppose in the same example, we want to add something. Suppose let's say we have defined one particular set, right? Let's suppose here we have defined one particular set here, right? So let's define a set. Now in set we have, suppose in set we have again, suppose here in set we have table, as another element we have chair, and in another element we have, suppose, lamp. We have lamp, right? And now we want to add something to this set. Then what we can do? Now here we can define another operation. Suppose let's say we have y here, or suppose x is equal x and add. Suppose if you want to add something to this set here, right? So here we have to add a condition called add. And then we can define the value which we are trying to add here. For example, let's suppose here we are trying to add, suppose pen. We are trying to add a pen object here, right? Then we can again go ahead and print the statement to see if this is being added. So now we can use print x, right click on the code, print the statement. And now I can see here as a part of the output, here we have table lampshade, which we have already defined, and then we have pen also being pushed in. Here. All right. So it all comes down to our requirement. That means which function we are trying to create here. Suppose let's say we want to find the length of it, right? Now for finding the length of it, we no longer need this one. Suppose we want to find the length of this one, right? So what we can do, we can go back and use the same statement as length, right? Inside print statement, and then we can define the x. Suppose, so what we are trying to do, we are trying to find length of x here. We are trying to find length of x here, right? So again, for running this, we can right click on it, click on run demo. As you can see here, how many objects are there? 3, right? So here we are seeing 3 being returned to us as a part of print statement. Okay, hi Dipti. So what is the tool you are using to run the commands? Dipti, currently we are using PyCharm. So we have an ID available for Python that is called as PyCharm, and that is exactly what we are using here. Is it clear, Dipti? Perfect. Thank you for confirming. Now, in terms of flow control, here we have multiple statements, right? We have if else, if, for, while, break, and continue. So these are multiple flow control. Whenever we are building any application, these are multiple statements that we can use here for defining the entire flow of any application. All right. Now, if as we have been looking at, this is the most widely used condition. If you want to check if you want to make sure that one statement is executed only if a condition is being fulfilled, then we can use conditions here. Then we can use conditions, right, as a part of Python. Now, this is applicable on any languages, on almost every language, right? So here we can define conditions, and if one condition is fulfilled, only then the other condition will be executed as a part of checking the conditions here, right? So now what we can do in Python, we can simply go ahead and perform the conditions here. So let's go ahead and write one condition. Now, here we can suppose here again we have defined one number, suppose as 88, and y we have defined as 99. Suppose 99, right? And now we're going to check if x is less than y. It should return, if x is less than y, then it should print that x is less than y. X is less than y. They should print this statement here, right? So again, to execute this, we can again go back to run demo. Click on run demo here. And if this condition is fulfilled, as you can see here, now it has been printed x is less than y here, because x is anyways less than y, right? Suppose if we make x greater than y, now x is 188 and y is 99. So again, we can right click on it, run demo. As you can see here, nothing has been printed because we haven't defined else, right? And that's exactly we need else for. So if we'll simply check the condition, if this condition is fulfilled, then this will run this statement here. But again, if the condition is not fulfilled, it will simply return a blank statement. It will simply return a blank statement here, right? And that's why we need to define the conditions here. And that's why we need to define conditions here. That means if one condition is not fulfilled, then what should happen? Then what should happen, right? So now just like we have print statement here, so now here what we can do, here we can else. So over here we can write else if this condition is not fulfilled, then it can print another statement. That means x is greater than y. All right. So now if we run this, as you can see here, now first of all, it will check this condition. That means if x is less than y, this will print x is less than y. Or if this condition is not fulfilled, else it will print this statement here. Right? So it all comes down to our requirement. All right. And same way we can add else if as well. Suppose again if we have another condition to check. So here we can add else if. So here we can check and any other condition as else if, right? So here we can define, suppose if else if x is equal to, for example, if x is equal to y, right? Then this should print another statement. Suppose x is equal to y, right? So now we have three conditions here. Here we have this condition, if x is equal to y, if x is less than y, then it should print this statement. Else if x is equal to y, then this should print this statement, right? So again, if we execute this, the output will remain same. The output here will remain same because again we have not used the same condition, correct? Okay, I think we have used elif. So okay, it should be elif, not else if. It is basically elif, right? So whenever we are checking conditions here, it should be elif. So again, we run this, as you can see here. Now we can see the output as x is greater than y here, right? And suppose if we make these two statements equal, suppose if x and y both are 99, then again we can run demo, as you can see here. Now this statement has been fulfilled. This condition has been fulfilled. Now we can see this statement being printed if x is equal to y here. All right. So are we all clear on the condition statement, guys? Please give me a quick information. Everyone, please give me a quick information, guys. Perfect. Thank you for confirmation, Ashutosh, Dilip, Kunal, Pujya, Sandhya, Kadri. Perfect. Thank you for confirmation, guys. So same way we can use conditional statement as a part of our Python development. Now, same way we also have while statement as well. Now, we also have while statement. So now while is basically used for iteration purposes, so that as long as one condition is fulfilled, then it will continue to run, else it will simply break away. It will simply break away in those cases. That's why we have, now that's why we use while mostly for loops itself, right? Now, for example, as a simple example for while loop, what we can see here is if we go back, now let's remove this. Let's 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 remove this. Now, let's suppose here we define x if x is equal to, for example, 1, right? And now here we can define, suppose while x is less than, suppose, 9, while x is less than 9, it should simply print x. That means as long as the value of x is less than 9, it should continuously print x, right? So now what will happen? And again, now here we define, suppose the value of I should be incremented to 1, right? So I should be I plus 1. That means if now suppose if I is 2, then the next value should be I plus 1, that is 3. The next value should be I plus 2, that is 4, 5, 6, and so on, right? And that's why we have to store the values here. Now, once we try to print this, let's suppose, let's keep it to x as well, right? As we use x statement here, let's keep it to x. Now, as you can see here, now as long as x remains less than 9, we have the entire statement numbers printed here from 1 to 8 itself. So again, if we keep this to 5, then only 5 numbers will be printed. Again, we can run the demo. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 being printed as a part of our statement here. All right. So that's how we can use the while loop. So while is basically for continuation. So as long as the condition is fulfilled, it will continue to run, and as soon as the condition is not fulfilled, it will simply break away. Right? That's why we have while statements. Now, next is we have for. So for is basically used for, again, for we can say is a simple extension for while as well. All right. So for is, we can say, a simple extension for why as well, right? Okay. First of all, are we all clear on the usage of while statement? Please give me a quick information, guys. Are we clear on the usage of while? Perfect. Thank you for confirmation, Kunal, Pujya, Sandhyan, Kadri, Kunal, Ashutosh. Okay, I have a query from Shivansh. So why we had different functions in Python for same purpose, exit and quit function? Shivansh, we had different use cases, right? So in some of the application, when we are developing those complex applications, right? Because of limitation, we cannot use exit and quit, because again we may have these words may have been used as reserve words there, right? So it depends upon the use case for where we are using this, right? And that's why we have different words for the same purpose in Python and in every kind of development. So is it clear, Shivaj? Please give me a quick information. Perfect. Thank you for confirming. Now, same way we also have for. Same way we have for as well available as a part of Python, right? So same way we have seen for the while loop, same way we have for loops also available as a part of Python, right? So for are basically, let's suppose when we are trying to conduct to create a simple function here, right? So create a simple function in y. So then we can use for statement. When we are trying to simply create a loop here, then we can create simple for function, right? For example, let's take a simple example. Now let's go back. Now here, let's suppose we save something again in X, right? So again in X, let's save an array here. Let's save an array here. So array in array, we save, suppose again we use the same example for chair. Again, then we have a table. Then we have, suppose, a lamp as well, right? Now let's do one thing. Let's define a for loop. So for X, now suppose for, we can say for y, because again we need to define another variable as y. So for y in x, what we want to do is, if we want to check a condition, that means for y in x, if y is equal to, for example, let's say table, if y is equal to table, then this should break the loop. Then the loop should be broken. So that's why we use break, right? And once the loop has been broken, then we can simply print y, right? So now what this will do, this will simply check. If we have declared another variable as y, right? So it will simply check if y finds table. Now as soon as y finds table in the entire array, it will simply break away the entire for loop, right? So here we can simply print y. Now if we go ahead and execute this, if we simply go ahead and execute this, this will simply return us. The entire statement will be broken here. The entire statement will be broken as what we have seen. All right. So are we all clear on this part, guys? Please give me a quick information. So basically, it is useful for the iterations, that we want to conduct on top of for statements, right? Especially when we are building any kind of loops as a part of for state, like for in Python, in JS, in Java. So that's why we use for statement for. And just like for, we have multiple functions also available as a part of Python. So we can create multiple functions as a part of Python as well, right? Just like we create functions in JS, just like we create functions in Java, right? So here we can use, but now for creating function, we have to define, now here in JS, we write functions, whereas in Python, we write DEF. We write DEF here, right? So now we can create any functions in Python by simply defining DEF, by simply defining DEF. f here, right? So now let's go ahead and create a small function. So don't worry, this will be the last thing that we'll be discussing before we wrap up. All right, so now let's create a small function. Now let's create a simple function where we can try printing any statements. Now you can go back. Now here we can, for starting a function, we have to use define, because using define itself, we can name the function here, right? Suppose we want to call this function as my function, right? And then we have to define we can keep the value as null, right? And then we can use a simple statement, suppose from print. So again, we can use the same statement as welcome to Edureka. And then at last, we have to also call the my function that we have created here, right? So now we can call the function that we have created here. And now if we want to print this, now let's say we try running this, then this will simply run and print the statement that we have defined under a function, right? And all those for, while, loops, all the operators, every kind of functionality that we can include this in function. And now why we are creating functions, so that we can trigger this, because function, now if we did not define this as function, then this will be automatically loaded as soon as the page loads, right? And when we want the function to be triggered only when we click on any object, right? Then we can define as a function there. That means now let's suppose when we have multiple buttons, suppose let's say when we are creating multiple pages in HTML, right? So in HTML we can define a property called onClick, right? Let's suppose here we have a button placed in HTML. So here in now what we can do in onClick, we can define my function here, right? That means as soon as the button is clicked, the function here will be triggered, so that it does not happen automatically, right? That's how we can create functions here. All right. So are we all clear on the concept of functions? Please give me a quick information, everyone. Perfect. Thank you for confirming. Rohit, Gaurav, Preeti, Asif, Smith, Delikun. All right. So this is a summary of what we had discussed here, guys. So we had discussed what exactly Python is, where Python is used, what are different features available in Python, how we can start by installation of Python IDE, and then we discussed our multiple operators and data types available in Python, right? So this is a quick introduction of how we can start a journey on Python language, guys. And first of all, thank you so much for joining for past 90 minutes now. It has been great interacting with you all. And let me showcase you the course page where we can explore. If you want to continue our journey, just like what we have started today, then we have multiple certification training available for Python as well, right? So we can go ahead and use it. So we can go ahead and explore this. Let me share the link with everyone. Kade, so you can contact the support team here, and again, so that you all can be eligible to get the discounts and as well as the recording for this one as well. And this will be available on YouTube, through which we can browse through later as well. We can do that. All right. All right, guys, so as you can see here, now here we have the Python certification training available from Edureka, where we can get started, where we'll be working on multiple projects, and each and every module is covered with multiple hands-on, which we can use to get started, right? So thank you so much for joining this entire session, you guys. It has been really great interacting with you all. It has been a wonderful time for the last 90 minutes that we have spent together. And as a small gesture, once we end the session now, you all will be getting a small NPS feedback form once we end the session here. That will be opened up in the browser, right? So kindly do give us excellent in that feedback form, just as a small token of appreciation for the hard work and time that we have put in, and hope to see you all soon to continue on the journey that we have started today, right? So it has been great interacting with you all, guys, and hope to see you all soon joining us. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.